is coming by, but he's going to be a little bit late. And of course, the world traveler, Mr. Donny Slabs, probably going to a different part of the States to get into a card show. So we will see him very shortly. We'll get into some of the guest activities today as well. But if this is your first time clicking in, thanks so much for doing so. My name is Schiller. We go live throughout the week talking about the various news around the world of trading card games. Now, traditionally, we talk about Pokemon, One Piece, trying to get a little bit more into Riftbound. Today, we're also going to have a little bit of a showcase around some Disney cards. We'll get into some Star Wars ones as well. Try to have it as well-rounded as possible. We'll go over some major headlines, and then very specifically with guests, we will go over what they are experts at, because everybody likes to kind of, dabble in different things, but we got to bring in the experts where they are needed. Now, of course, as this stream is coming to you pretty much all the time at this point, we do have to give a shout out to the sponsor of the stream, Sync. You can see the QR code up in the top right, but if you want to find out what card prices are, if you're out at different shows, you can actually see for sets what exactly is the most expensive card in a set. You just simply look it up within the app, Shrouded Fable as the example here, and bada boom, it's up there. You can create some shareables, and it's a super useful tool if you're also out at any kind of card shows and you're trying to find out, hey, you know what are these cards worth? How does it feel to haggle a little bit? And if you're wanting to be accurate with your prices, you can download the app, scan cards, get an idea of what they're worth, and bada boom, bada bang, you are good to go. So let's talk for a moment about the guests that we are going to have on the live stream today. And this in particular is a really cool group of people, at least in my opinion. So off the bat, once Donny Slabs gets to wherever he's staying, he's going to jump on here. And then we're going to have Nicky Cardboard, who's going to do a little bit of a show and tell with us of some of their cards. They're into Disney ones, they're into sports cards, they're a little bit into Pokemon as well. And then we have Pretzel coming through, and Pretzel is very much into One Piece. Now, one thing that also is kind of cool is this Saturday at about 1 p.m., I've hit up two other people that are going to be joining me to go over some of the breakdown, I guess. I shouldn't say some of the. They're going to give a breakdown of what it looks like to get into the One Piece TCG from both a collector standpoint and from a player standpoint. So very much looking forward to that. And then we do have Rare Finds coming down a little bit later that is going to break down what sort of opportunities exist out in the TCG space. And we're talking pretty much everything under the sun. There's somebody who does research all the time, every single day, and trying to give you the alpha of, hey, you know what, maybe this is something that a lot of people might have some demand for down the line. So on some of the topics that we're going to go over, I want to start with the Cyberpunk trading card game, number one, because their Kickstarter has had massive success. This is something that we've brought up numerous times before, of just kind of shock and awe at how much in specific these guys have been able to pull in. So if you go through here right now, over $32 million Canadian. They have over 40,000 backers for this. I wouldn't say that Cyberpunk as a video game right now is super popular and in, the mainstream. You go to Twitch and the other platforms and you see all these goodies, and it's not front and center. But seeing the card game pull this much in, I'm still asking myself, is this people that are speculating on just the interest of trading cards as a whole? Is this a lot of hardcore people that are very interested? Are of these 40,000 backers, are the majority of people buying the smaller tiers, but then there's people that are going absolutely crazy on the upper tiers? Because when you scroll through it, again, you can pay upwards of $8,000 for what they're offering on here. $8,000 for one of the earlier support packages from this. Now, what does it look like when it goes out into the stores? What are some of the things that's going to be available that's also available right now in terms of promotional cards? That's another thing that we're going to have to consider as well. But if you're wanting to get into this, realize that this is the last about 24 hours to do so. And as we're talking, you can see that more people are buying. And I guess the question is, does this end up doubling in the last 24 hours? Is the people that already bought bought at this point, that might end up being the case. So again, if you want to check that out, you just type in Cyberpunk TCG on any kind of search. Now, if you watch the stream throughout the week, I was hoping to talk about this with Quad, but we'll kind of, take this slowly and we'll see when he pops through. But PSA Japan put out this announcement talking about cash enclosures on their submissions. So what's happened is people are stuffing their envelopes with cash to incentivize the graders to give them a 10. Now, on the card grading front, we've seen a little bit more rumblings of, if you end up getting a 9, they're, pricing it a little bit higher than raw. If you get an 8, you're kind of out of luck. But if you do end up getting that 10, it can be worth substantially more. So here's the announcement from PSA Japan regarding enclosing cash or items with requested items. Lately, there has been an increase in cases where cash is enclosed along with items submitted for authentication. It is prohibited by law to send cash via mail other than by registered cash mail. Additionally, PSA cannot accept cash or any items other than the submitted items. Such actions require time for verification and directly lead to overall shipping delays and inconvenience to other customers. If the enclosure of cash is confirmed, we strictly adhere to the following measures, so please be sure to comply. And here's the 2. We will not accept the order and return it via collect on delivery, and we may restrict the use of our services in the future. Please refer to this image for details. And I can't really refer to that because it's not translated. But the idea is it's for PSA Japan. So, of course, we're not going to be able to read it in English. But people are dying out there to get the highest grade they can and doing some cheeky business to get it out there. Another crazy headline that came across my timeline. I was able to meet Oh My Sports Cards, or at least one of the CEOs, executives of this not too long ago. And I saw this on timeline. I was like, okay, so I know somebody that has an offer for $100,000 on a particular card that's a 1-of-1 Tom Brady. Now, you might say, all right, 1-of-1 Tom Brady, that sounds kind of cool, but what if I told you that it was him in a Montreal Expos attire? Now, that is something that's a little bit special. We look at the card grading from the PSA that we just brought up a second ago, and this one is only a 9. Imagine what it would pull for a 10. And so I made a clip from this on a stream earlier within the week, and I posted it, and I got a reply back from him saying, guess what? I got an offer for $125,000 for it. So remember, it started at $100,000. This got a ton of attention, 103,000 views. Now it's going for $125,000 if they were to sell. Now, most people, David, what's going on? Good to see you. Most people, I would have thought, would say, I'm taking the $100,000 cash because I'm in that boat, right? But I posted this across Facebook, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, elsewhere. Every single response was, yeah, I'd keep it too. Every single one of them. So if you were going to do a mass survey, I would love to see the breakdown for it. But I do think that it's phenomenal. A 1-of-1 Tom Brady card in a Montreal Expos gear. Now, to go over to VeeFriends for a second, and which is a IP and a brand that we've really not talked about a whole lot, but to give a little bit of a breakdown, here's what some of the cards look like. And this started as Gary Vaynerchuk, who, if you don't know, he's somebody that does motivational speaking, if you will, very popular on shorts platforms like TikTok, giving life advice to different people, and he decided to build a brand of VeeFriends. And it started as drawings that he himself made, and he wasn't an artist. And so you can see over on the side, I mean, I don't think like this black cat is that bad, but over on the side, you can see that, okay, maybe they're more like cartoony, or maybe not the cleanest you could ever see. And then you go over to the side and you're like, okay, so the art's kind of improved over years. So originally they had the VeeFriends X Zero Cool Series 1, and then the trading card game, they've got chromes with pops. You can, it goes further and further and further. But the point that somebody was making is, why isn't this more popular? And they were saying it's because of Gary Vaynerchuk name that's associated with it because, everybody's judgmental, right? Some people might end up liking the guy, some people don't. But when you think of that, it is kind of something where you just like by default associate that with him, especially because, well, damn, he's the initial artist for it, right? And that's a fascinating thought because when I think of any other card game, whether it be Pokemon, whether it be One Piece, whether it be Riftbound, I don't know if I could even tell you who's associated with that or who ended up creating it, right? Like some people will know that off the top of their head, but a lot of these other people I don't think are like in the spotlight in the same sense, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, David, exactly. So some people are not fans of Gary, so does that have a negative impact to it? Now, on a cool little history lesson, just while we're here, the VeeFriends Zero Cool series. So Zero Cool was a brand that had a couple of different partnerships for it. So they actually did cards for the Jackass series, if you remember those shows. Hilarious back in the day. And they also did one with Stranger Things. And Stranger Things obviously was massively popular, but this was one that was done kind of in the earlier times of it. And then what happened was that it just, I don't know, it just kind of disappeared. But I thought this was supposed to be a really popular brand. And it felt like Topps was using this as something that was being part of a series of kind of fringe but interesting collections and cards that were out there. But this does have sort of a historical context to it. If you ever find anything for Zero Cool, you just can't find it anymore. So then on the historical side, again, the other day on stream, we were talking about the Overwatch League cards, and for Upper Deck, these were some of the first series. Now, not Overwatch League as a whole, were the first ones that came as a partnership for Upper Deck. So if you want to look at history, if you look at Zero Cool cards, you can say, hey, here's the cool history behind it. How many people care about that? I don't know. For Overwatch League cards, you can say, hey, this is the first Upper Deck esports series that they've ever had or partnership. Does that have any extra value to it for these narratives? Because everybody's coming up with these different thoughts or, apart from, hey, this is a cute, cool card. This is what they default to. Now, for these ones, season 4, like this is kind of an older set. I don't know if they even make them anymore, but it looks like they've went through like 4 or 5 different seasons for it. Love Gary, the thought and business guy. I hate the manipulation and hobby shilling guy. Yeah, fair enough, David. I think there's a lot of similar sentiment to that for a lot of people out there. So again, for VeeFriends, curious to see how that ends up scaling over time, or at least the trading card component overall. Now, this is probably one of the most viewed posts that I've ever had. And it's not, I saw this coming across TikTok from CTV and I was like, man, this is a really big deal. And I wanted to kind of save this for Quad when he's here. So I'm going to have to kind of pause that for a moment and we'll go back to it. But one of the other ideas that I had was I've gotten really, really into running. And I think you guys would absolutely love it if you haven't done it before. And it's not about sprinting, right? Like it's about fast walking, kind of jogging and all of that. But I thought, man, what would it look like if we could have run clubs at trading card shows or competitions? I don't know how much of a crossover it is, but Donny told me last stream that he actually runs as well. But then Cost Effective brought up a great point. Show first, run later. Card shows already questionable for smells as is. And yeah, you know what? I kind of agree with it. Now, granted, the first card show that I ever went to, it was bad. The second one, it really wasn't. It wasn't too stressful. It really wasn't too stressful. And this is a thing that just ridiculous. So the oddest things get massive impressions. 124,000 impressions because somebody noticed that a particular individual wanted to buy 732 of these Galarian Slowpokes, which goes back to, is the art really that desired? Like, do you look at that and say, that's going to be a card that's a big seller at one point? I don't know. But we've had so many accounts that try to buy up the entire supply of a specific card that it's funny as hell to watch. Now, Popeyes. You guys probably have seen this too, and again, sorry, this is a little bit of a repeat for somebody that might be watching the daily streams, but of course, again, we do the streams throughout the week, but then we do kind of a big show together, going over some of the major headlines of the particular week, and Popeyes and One Piece. They did a collab. It wasn't for a trading card, But I think that this is very important because everybody's going to be vying for different attention. And how do you onboard people? Well, can you imagine if you're driving across like this car is right now and you see a lineup of what, 300 people going to Popeyes, and you're like, what the hell is going on at Popeyes? And if you've had Popeyes before, you know damn well it's like, all right, it's not bad, but is it really that good? So then you look it up, everybody's searching, why is everybody at Popeyes? And then you find out, oh, everybody wants to get this One Piece collab, in which that moment in time is their introduction to One Piece. For myself, it was somebody mentioned it and then coming across it on Netflix and being like, let me take a gander at it. And I loved it. But for some people, it'll be this Popeyes chicken line. Like, how absolutely bonkers of a thought is that? So this is some of the... I don't want to call it like merchandise because it feels sort of weird, but the packaging, if you went, a lot of stores allegedly ran out of it, but people were going to buy specifically these bento boxes. Why? Because they wanted to end up flipping them. And you can see right away, these things are selling $150, $349, $400. People are spending the most outrageous amounts on these. And then it was supposed to be available online like a day or two after. But I guess if you're early, you're good to go. Now, maybe they had issues with stocking, but I'm trying to understand why somebody would pay the amount that they do. And somebody bought 2 of them for $800. That's just ridiculous. But when you look at that, you say, yeah, this is what I want to have as my lunch container forever. Because if that's the case, respect. Yo, BL8, phenomenal to see you. Hope you're having a wonderful day for it. And thank you for popping through. But it's nice. It's not bad. So then we look at that, right? And we talk about like the promotional things. So Popeyes, it's all over. But earlier in the year, right? Because we're almost forced to talk about One Piece at a point, because for the college basketball tour that happened, obviously throughout the year, there's a lot of basketball games, but specifically One Piece decided they were going to do some giveaway nights at particular games. This turned into maybe one of the craziest things ever, where people were standing outside trying to just buy cards. Actually, let me just check here because I don't actually know if the audio is being shared on this, because it's I want you to hear. Yeah, I think it is. Okay, sorry, my apologies on that.
$100 per card if you have this card, folks. Paying $100 per card. Yep.
Appreciate it, bro.
For sure. You want to sell the other one for 100?
Yeah. You want it? Yeah, whatever. Thanks, bro.
Of course. Hey, folks.
He's got 3 of them.
$300. Boom. What a payday.
Give it to him.
All right.
Man, that kid did not look like he wanted to sell that.
$100?
$100 per card.
Let me make it 2.
Can't do that. Hey, folks. $100 per card. $100 per card.
That's clever. Make it 200 and I'll do it.
Paying $100 cash per card if you have this card. Hey, folks. $400 for you if you have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Count it. $400.
Is it 100 per?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Folks, if you have this card, paying $100 per card.
I'll keep shopping around.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Is this not fascinating to watch?
Hey, folks, if you have this card, paying $100 per card. If he's paying $300, I'll give all of mine to him. It's impossible. Hey, folks, paying $100 per card if you have this card.
I got 2. Cool. Nice.
Yeah, thank you. Folks, if you have this card, I'm paying $100 per card.
Sorry, excuse the swearing in the background.
$100 per card. Yeah. Take my money. Take my money. How many is that? 2? Got you with
like, is this not absolutely captivating to see how many people were handed a piece of cardboard? Do you want to keep the cardboard or do you want $100?
You got 3?
What's going on in the background? Somebody's just absolutely losing their marbles. Who wants to fight? What? Oh my goodness. I actually don't know what these cards are going for right now, but they were like right away online. They were selling for a pretty hefty penny. And this is the thing that was like sort of weird about it, is because it went from, the initial game, and there's some like really chaotic videos of security guards inside of the building getting the people that are doing what he's doing right now, because people got tickets and were going in and trying to buy the tickets in the stadium. There's crazy videos of people just, or security guards like getting the people out, being like, "Oh, you're scalpers, get out of here, get out of here." And then they all waited outside, right? So at least from E-Money here saying there was $9,000 profit if they ended up selling it. So what happened with this card, which is like sort of weird if you don't know, is on one. So they had, I think it was like 4 or 5 games. And then on one of them, somebody left a door open, and I guess all of the cards got stolen, or at least a significant amount of them, where news headlines broke across the space. $4 million heist of One Piece cards. How ridiculous. How absolutely ridiculous is that? So you go from Popeyes and their bento box as of recently. You look back, they've done this collab. You go even further. You think of the Dodgers collab with the Luffy card. One Piece has put on a masterclass in marketing. And realistically, like, it's content for us watching this, but there's people that are realizing, hey, if we get these things, we can make some cash. So it's something. Just checking comps, going for around $200 right now. Yo, BL8, what an absolute legend. Thank you so much for the quick check on there. Sorry, I just didn't want to do it live because it'd probably take me a second. But on some of those collabs, sorry, I forgot that I went and found this graphic. So please note that this is not an accurate graphic. This is just something when I was trying to like run through to bring up the images that was all split together. So the Borussia Dortmund, this is one of the soccer teams out in Europe. Right, so this was one of the original ones that One Piece did on like a bigger sports collab, if you will. This is the Dodgers Luffy card, which obviously with Shohei Ohtani, everything around the Dodgers, the World Series wins, the attention around the team, everything else under the sun. This one's had a lot of ebbs and flows. I want to say that this is going for like a fair bit more now, but maybe it's come back down. And I feel like this card in particular has really moved back and forth. The basketball one, not as much so, but if we're going to look at the three and say which one has like the best lore or the most interesting component about it, I don't know. After the videos that we just saw, I don't think that happened at Dodger Stadium, or if it did, we didn't see the amount of videos and happenings that happened at the time, or maybe people didn't realize that these were going to go for a smoking deal, or I just didn't do my research good enough. So the Pokemon Center. Hopefully Quad comes through here in a second, because a couple of these I picked out to try to ask his different opinion on. But Bismack, who we're going to have on here potentially next week, have done a whole bunch of outreach. So hopefully you guys are going to like the guests that we have. And again, in about 10, 15 minutes time, we are going to have Nicky Cardboard on to do a little bit of a show and tell with us. But Bismack saying, genuinely impressive how it's been a year plus of heightened demand for sealed products on the Pokemon Center site. Cube experience is arguably getting worse. So if you don't know, on different Pokemon drops, Pokemon Center has kind of a specific labeling that's kind of it's got stamps on cards and everything, and it goes for a little bit more, and also it's charged at like MSRP, so you're not getting like screwed over from stores that are selling way above it. I clicked on it to see, maybe I'll pick up something. The queue went from 6 hours to 5 hours to 4 hours back to 6 hours. Did not gonna happen. Nope. But there's people that apparently got it right away. We've had other people that are completely crashing out about it all over the sun. And then Special Grade is saying every person I'm talking to is doing the same thing, moving every high-value Pokemon card they have into One Piece Grails. Grail market is evaporating for One Piece TCG again. So I'd ask you, if you're watching right now, do you feel that you're wanting to sell some other cards to get into One Piece? Do you care about One Piece? When Golden comes on a little bit later at about 7:30, we will get into One Piece with him as well. Of course, with Pretzel at 7. But with Pretzel, I think we're going to talk more about like the competitive side, where Golden is looking for the different alpha and maybe following the resale market, if you will, for cards. But I still think that also like Riftbound is going to be something that people are going to look forward to as well. Star Wars. Dun, 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 dun. How was that? Pretty good for humming? Pretty good for humming? Hell yeah. So there was this complaint from RT who says, is anyone else having problems with low grades with PSA? Don't people want low grades, by the way? Like, I don't know if that's a weird thing to mention. It's not weird. Let me rephrase. People want a 10, right? But I've seen where people are like specifically damaging cards, or the population for some of the low numbers are so low that it's almost rarer to get a bad grade and then have that narrative in which we talked about a little bit earlier with the Overwatch League, the VeeFriends Zero Cool series and everything else. And so I tagged Mr. Johnny Dunn. Who is phenomenal, because they're really, really into the Star Wars front, and they just let it loose on the inside. So here's what he had to say about the person complaining about the low pops for some of the earliest Star Wars cards, which, again, they allegedly pulled directly from a pack. So their thought was these should grade like pretty decently, shouldn't they? I get no one likes a low grade, and stinks he pulled from a pack too, but I guess it happens. And when you look at the total population of graded, and I realize these are the first ever Star Wars cards of all time, and its tops, everything feels incredibly underappreciated still, and low pops all around in all grades. Look at the one Pikachu modern card, over like 45,000 PSA 10s, and sells for over $3,000. Now, of course, Pokemon cards are infinitely popular than Star Wars cards for whatever reason. I shouldn't say whatever reason. That's not accurate phrasing, but it's just the case. And so Johnny also brought up what the PSA population counts were for both of those cards. And so in the lower grades, you can see 25, 3. In a PSA 1, there's only 4 of the one card. But then you go up, there's only 15 10s, 117 9s. So arguably, get in the 2 is maybe better than the 9. Huh? Maybe not. But then on the other side here, there's only 8 2. So it's actually on that second card, it's actually rarer to get the PSA 2 than the PSA 10. Now, are people going to pay more money for that? Yeah, probably not ultimately going to be the case. And then if you haven't seen, Pokemon and Lego are doing a cool little competition where you could end up changing your fortune. When was the last time that you bought a lottery ticket? The odds of that are probably not great. But what if I could tell you the odds of getting your submission picked on this are probably infinitely better, because I don't know how many people actually submit to this. But if you're a creative mastermind and you take Legos and you want to create a Pokemon, you can submit it to this competition. Currently, there's 146 of these, but if yours gets selected, you get 10 of the Lego sets that are created sent to you, and you get 1% of the total sales. So imagine getting 1% of a Pokemon X Lego product. Yeah, I'm clapping for you. I already know you're going to be successful with that. So maybe something to mention to a friend if you're aware of any friends that are on the artistic front, but here's a couple of the different ones. Now, the other catch with this is it's a very specific group of Pokemon. I think there's about 10 or 15, so you're not able to just kind of make whatever you want, but like as an example, you can see here on the bottom, somebody made a Giratina, and like, look at that. Can you imagine being that creative in life? Like, I am jealous of whoever, they even did the logoing on the back. Yo, BL8, I only date 2s because they're more rare. Okay, listen, in that context, okay. You are hilarious. I love that. But then scrolling through, you got Executor, you got one of these. Actually, hold on. I want to look at this Executor. Wow. So this is what they did for the heads of it, which is very clever. And then we got the treetop, and look how large that is. I guess this is like a table or a deck out back. The thing looks like fairly massive. There was like certain stipulations of like requirements of how big these needed to be. And then going over to Meowth, which I feel like all of a sudden Meowth is suddenly front and center after Pokemon's Perfect Order release, because it's like one of the main cards in it. And then it's like on everything. Yo, listen, we got a special guest coming on through. we got a special guest coming on through, and it's Donny Slabs. Donny, listen, we're only massively late, but God, I love to see you, buddy. How we doing?
Oh man, that good old big city traffic. I'm back here in Nashville this week, and traffic is an absolute nightmare. I mean, very similar to Austin where I'm from. But how are we doing? How are we doing? I was listening in. I
love it.
You did a fantastic job.
Thank you. I appreciate you. So I'm not going to play this video because I think it's a little bit easier if I talk through it, but I want to kind of put it in your perspective of like, what the hell would Donny Slabs do, or would you just quit on this? So in Quebec, in Canada, there is a law where you need to have both the English and the French version of a product at like a board game store of sorts. So hypothetically, if you ran out of your English cards at a show and you had your Japanese as well to try to put that in the thing, you would actually get fined because you didn't have both products available, right? But that's specifically for the French. So what do we think about that? Would this just completely destroy your business and you would quit if that was needed?
Well, first off, the French ruining everything. What do you expect? It's pretty par for the course. But yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, what, I have to carry the English and Japanese version of a certain card, and when one sells, I have to put the other away. I mean, that's just, it's obviously a law that doesn't really gel well with what we do in terms of vending. But I would also like to see him. I'd like to see him actually enforce that. That would be kind of crazy,
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something about like protecting like French's language overall, because there's like some stipulation of like it's got to be bilingual on like the product itself, or you have to carry both the English and the French version.
We don't need to protect the French version. No one wants the French. The French don't even like the French, man. Come on, dude.
So I saw this from Daza, and it felt super relevant, but I was curious for you. So allegedly this is, there's like, okay, so you're saying the only other, so apparently there's two bilingual Pokemon cards, and this one has the Japanese and English version. Have you ever seen this before?
No, I actually haven't. Looks pretty cool. I mean, it's got Hawaii written in the clouds in the background too. That's really,
good
really
cool.
eye. I mean, if with the current mega sets, right, and some old XY, the English card has the Japanese name written across it, or the Japanese card then has the English name written across it. I know a lot of people like those, and with them coming back this year with the attack rares, it's been really nice to have multiple languages on a single card. So I definitely like it. This art's really cool. I bet that's an expensive card. I'm just guessing.
I would imagine so. Now, I want to go back to this because you brought up the fact that you were running, and I thought this was hilarious from cost effective. But I was like, man, what do we do if we like get run clubs going at these different card shows? Would that even work? Because cost effective, like everybody would just smell like crap. So probably not.
Brother, I'm telling you, a run club is not happening at a card show. Sad to say, but like probably like 5% of vendors run, maybe if at all. Right. I won't say the card collecting community is the healthiest community out there, but yeah, I mean, it would be great if we can. I'm on a run streak right now, so I won't say it's easy to like get done with standing for 8 to 10 hours at a show and go, back to the hotel and get your mile in at least, but it's just something you got to do. So I would welcome anyone that wants to run with me after shows. That would be awesome. I don't think it's going to catch on very quickly.
No, fair enough. So one thing that I did want to ask you though, because I saw this on the timeline and I was like, is this just somebody that's trying to do the account of I'm going to buy a whole bunch of a particular card and then making my personality on socials, but like Galarian Slowpokes, 732 of them for $9. I mean, you said that you bought a ton of like those jumbo Pikachu museum cards. And that one I feel like is a little bit more of a, promotional. It's got the narrative to it, but I don't like what the hell is the narrative to a Galarian Slowpoke?
Man, that's rude, dude. You got to bring up the fact that I bought all those
cards. Sorry, right.
Just reminding me, I just have bags of jumbo cards just sitting at the house. No, I mean, first off, the most impressive thing about that is that a seller had 732 available, because if you were to buy from a bunch of different sellers, it would show up as different orders right there, right? Because they're all at different prices and things like that. So That's the more impressive thing in my eyes about this, is the fact that one single seller had that many of this card to sell in his inventory. That's pretty impressive.
Unreal. Also, just a note, I realized on X and then also Twitch, I don't know if like the title ended up saving. Dude, I hate Riverside so much. That's the thing that we use here. So I hit the live button. It tells me that Twitch isn't working, first of all, right? Which is just like, okay, great, phenomenal. This make my day better. And then I'm looking on X and it says, welcome to the live show. It says, welcome to the live show. I put a title on here and it says, welcome to the live show. I hate this thing. It's awful. Unreal.
Well, they're just welcoming our followers in. It's being really nice.
Yeah, just ridiculous. Okay, so listen, this is one that I really wanted to go over with you earlier. Why did PSA Japan put out an announcement that people are stuffing cash into their PSA submissions? Like, have you ever talked to anybody that's done that?
No, I've never talked to someone that's done that, but me and my vendor buddies joke around all the time, right? We get a new submission and everybody, like, hey, did you put a bottle of Jack Daniels in there? You throw some cash in there. Like, how did you bribe them? But it's hilarious that PSA had to actually come out and tell people, like, stop doing this. Like, it doesn't help you. That's peak hobby right there for sure.
Nobody else has put out announcements like this. Are the other card graders just not getting cash the same, or do you think they're pocketing the goods? Why is it only PSA Japan that's specifically doing this?
Well, it is illegal to send cash. That I've been told that before. I went to FedEx one day to send some cash to someone, and they asked what was in the envelope, and I said cash, and they said, oh, it's illegal to send cash, which is just absolutely crazy in my mind. Like, you're not allowed to ship cash, but I mean. It's ridiculous. Who would just blindly throw money in a box, hoping that a grader gives you a better grade? Because if you think through it logically, the person that opens the box is not the person that's grading the card for you. Like, you imagine that every grader has to, like, oh, here's the next box. Let me use my box opener and open it up and process all the card. Like, it just doesn't work that way. So very, very hilarious that they had to make an official statement on this.
So we're gonna have Nicky Cardboard here on just a moment, but Quad, you're out hitting the road. Are you going to a card show this weekend, or how come you're traveling?
No, just my normal job, man.
Gotcha.
The normal job calls, and I'm here in Nashville here for a couple days running an event, and then back to it with another card show next weekend.
So last time we were on here, we talked a little bit about how it felt like there was maybe a tad too many card shows going on right now. From any of your vending friends or whatnot, do you have any things from last week compared to this one, of any extra sentiments or thoughts around shows that maybe have changed a little bit? I know that we do these on a weekly, so it's a little bit harder to kind of...
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, honestly, perfect example was this past weekend. I was at a card show in Houston that is traditionally a very, very, very good card show. But there was another card show in town, maybe 10 minutes down the road, that holds a card show every weekend. And they're a free card show, right? So you can walk in, don't have to pay anything to get in. They just charge the vendors a little bit more. And, this was the worst card show that I've seen, the one I went to, in the two years I've been doing that specific show. And I think it's because there was just too much competition right down the road, 10 minutes away of another show. And, no one wins when there's shows, when there's multiple shows in a town in a week. Everybody loses, right? The vendors lose because you have to choose what show to go to vend at. The consumer loses because you have to go to 2 different locations to get the cards, and to look through the cards and travel. And then the shows lose because people have to choose what show they go to and what show they vend at. So they're not getting the max amount of money as they could. So really it hurts everybody. But one thing I've learned is a lot of these shows don't like each other. And so they will even purposely, when a new show comes in town, they'll schedule a show on the same weekend as a new show. There's definitely a cash grab out there right now for sure. That's going on with these shows.
Unbelievable. Yo, Nicky Cardboard, man, you look phenomenal. How we do it? Yo,
Well,
is this sports jersey or what are we rocking right now?
No, we got Watford.
Yo,
Watford
okay, English
FC,
Premier
baby.
League, not bad, not bad.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, I know. No, we're not going to be one of those top EPL clubs. We like the grittier kind of underdogs, you know. So
Schiller, that's how I know you're Canadian, man, because you know all the soccer teams, and Canadians just know obscure sports, like 'cause they don't do very well in the normal sports, and so we don't here in America. Soccer is like our fifth or sixth sport, right? But like Canada, like after hockey, you guys are like, oh, let me go find what sport to watch now, eh? Like so, I think that. I don't know anything about hockey, to be honest with you. Sorry, about soccer.
Okay, I was about to say, come on, you got to know a little bit about hockey. You got to know a little bit about hockey. But yo, Nicky Cardboard, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Pleasure to meet you. But listen, I was going through your pages. You got a ton of cards. You got a ton of cards. So talk us a little bit about what you've collected and kind of how you got into it. And if you want to show us some of the stuff kind of while you're doing it, we'd love to see some.
Yeah, sure, of course. No, thanks for having me on. Really, really good to meet you guys. And so I've been collecting cards for quite a few years. I got jump started back into it in COVID, like a lot of people. But I've been collecting since I've been a kid, mainly in a lot of baseball and more sports centric. But COVID kind of put me back into looking into new things, and I started exploring into things like Pokemon and as of late Disney, which I'd love to kind of share and get into with you guys. So my collection is kind of across the board from sports to Pokemon to Disney. And really, I just like collecting what I like, which is a lot of short print stuff, a lot of obscure kind of prints. So, I kind of jump around all over the place. I don't really drift to one specific player to PC or things of that. So, I think the biggest thing that's been, blowing up right now has been just the Disney market. And, I'm not sure if you guys have been, seeing on your end, or if you've been personally collecting, or
I've definitely not seen a huge uptick, Donny, with Disney cards. Have you noticed it? I need to be paying attention here.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think like Lorcana is the one that I hear the most of right now.
Sure.
In terms of like alternative cards, but anytime a hobby itself gets hot, all of the lesser known aspects of that hobby kind of get discovered, right?
Yep.
And so the market for Disney and Lorcana and all these other like alternative cards is you're hearing more about it when you would have never heard about it like at all to begin with. So where there's smoke, there's fire. I'm sure there's definitely some really good opportunities in the niche market for sure.
Somebody commented to me earlier today that Lorcana was a trash trading card game, though. So are you collecting it from? Well, actually, first of all, because there's top sets too. So like Nicky, are you in Lorcana? Are you on the tops? What's the vibe?
Yeah, so I'm specifically tops, and to kind of give you a background. So back in 2023, Tops put out a very short printed release of their very first Chrome product of Disney. And they wanted to do it to an ode to celebrate the 100 years of Disney. So they were founded in 1923, bringing around that 100 years. So they put out a very short printed product, only available EQL drop and only available in the UK. So you couldn't get it here. And specifically, it was only hobby boxes. I think it was around like 20, 25K hobby boxes on the print run. Modern Chrome is like 80 to 100K. So you really couldn't find it. And if you did, it was like very obscure whatnot, or, I was gambling on China like nonstop, which, I still look back and grimace over certain cards. But at the end of the day, if you wanted to get in, it was a super scarce kind of niche market. But I think what made it just so cool was it was the first time Topps put out a Chrome product of Disney. So everything essentially was this rookie kind of era. And it was getting acknowledged that way. And not just that, but the cards were beautiful. Like objectively, the art was so cool, and the card stock was so much thicker than you get from normal Chrome cards. And I think it just drove a lot of people to really get into it, but not just, people that like weird stuff like, you guys and me, but I think, kids, girlfriends, parents, people love Disney, and people want certain characters. And it's a lot easier to kind of sift through a checklist and see who you like and just collect off that versus, going into gambling on a box and finding a bunch of no-name rookies that might not be in the league next year. So I think it just has a lot of upside in that sense. And since then, they've brought it over domestic. They've been raising the print run, and they're including things like sketches and real actor autos. So I think the possibilities are just endless right now. Yeah.
That's interesting. I feel like for almost all products right now that are like trading card related, it's like it's not necessarily plus EV to like open any sealed product, like no matter what it is. But I mean, listen, Nicky, show us some of the stuff you got here. I'm curious. So you're Disney Chrome, period, or Tops, I should say. But I guess it's the Chrome series, or
the Chrome series specifically. So I'll just show you. I'll start out with a banger. This is one of my personal favorites. So the cool thing is there's a lot of color matches that people go for, and there's certain kind of mix and matches that make sense to a character. So my personal favorite is a Frozone diamond.
I love that character.
So for those people that like ice, I mean, you can't really beat something like this. So numbered out of 100 for the 100 years, it just has so much going for it. So I think that's really cool. But then they did a lot of really short printed stuff for the 100 years. So here's a Goofy numbered to 23. It's an ultra rare short print. They only did 6 different characters numbered to 23: Mickey and Minnie, Daisy and Donald, and then Goofy and Pluto. So there's things like this that you really can't find. But then, they've been stepping up their game with doing things like sketches, to where you're getting real artists drawing these cards, one of ones. And I think it's just it's going across the board from collecting a character to then just really expanding in the art is just really cool here, like what you're seeing out of the Marvel stuff. So I think you're getting a lot of fans from Marvel too, not just the the TCG kind of community, but people that like certain aspects of cards, like sketches, like real autos. I think it's just done a great job at including.
Wait, hold on. I have a quick question. Are the Incredibles Disney?
Oh yeah.
Like, can I get like a Miss Incredible, an
You
autograph
Miss
card?
Incredible. I don't know about an auto. But I don't know if you can get an auto of Mrs. Incredible, but they definitely have a Samuel L. Jackson auto in the set.
I think I'm gonna have to go chasing after this.
This is how it starts,
Incredible.
This is how it starts.
Auto right here.
Well, last week we had a huge debate around like who's leading. Now, we posted the clip a little bit earlier. If anybody happens to be following on X or on Instagram, where it was like comparing from One Piece has all these different collabs, and we talked about earlier in this stream of like the Popeyes. They have all of these shows, movies that they're coming out with. Pokemon is Pokemon. They have exactly the same thing. Riftbound's kind of on League of Legends, but then it's like, is Disney not bigger than like all of this? But it feels like it's the last one on the totem pole.
So true, and I think that's why I was so confident in buying down so early, just because I think from a franchise like that, and I think how Topps has done it is really smart, because now they've done as they always do. They like to print a lot, but they started to separate pure Disney, and then they did a Pixar set. So I think you can kind of go down different avenues here, and to your point, it's been the last on the totem pole. It hasn't gotten a lot of love. I don't think there's been a huge traction from the card community to kind of realize, Disney
how do you get them in?
Collectible.
How do you get them in there though? Because I know isn't like Disney pins the product? Like isn't Disney like super in demand? But just the trading cards aren't as much compared to other. That seems weird.
And I so there have been Disney cards, and I've found on eBay there's been different kind of manufacturers that have made Disney cards, but nothing to the extent that it's been a full set with parallels and inserts and things like that. So it's been wild that it's been so late to the game, but I think it's just getting started, and I think they're going to do a really good job at I think making next year a little bit more focused on a lot of the short prints and not as big as the checklist was. I think what the first set was so good about was 100 characters is manageable, and you can track that, and it makes it much easier to collect and master set. As it's gotten bigger and the cards get more expensive, it's just harder, versus you know, some people for Pokemon, how you're able to find a $1-2 card. Minimum Disney, if you're going to find a parallel, it's going to be, you know, $5 to $10. So it's just an expensive product when it comes down to it too.
I think the other interesting thing about it is, you know, we talked about One Piece and not really having that nostalgia factor as much right now is that Disney, because their IP has been around for so long and these characters have been around for so long, and you know, people like me and then even a generation older than mine, you know, grew up with those being the movies that they watched.
Yeah.
You know, probably leans more on the nostalgia factor, more towards a Pokemon than you know, the One Piece or Riftbound or like other IPs that like haven't been around for like 40, 50 years. And so I think that that's probably another aspect of the Disney collector is like it's stuff that we grew up with, so it's like really familiar and really hits that nostalgia button.
Yep. Yeah, and I think there's not just that. I think main sports collectors, as they're starting to see this, a lot of, you know, my buddies that are in the hobby and vendors themselves, like they realize the scarcity aspect of something like this, and for certain characters, like they don't want to collect everybody like me. They just want to go for one person and go all in, which I can really appreciate, because, you know, that's the fun of this. You can kind of pick your person and just go from there. And I think, you know, just the hierarchy aspect of, you know, tier 1 is Mickey and Minnie, tier 2 is the princesses, Stitch, Woody, and then tier 3 is like the villains, Nemo, Remy from Ratatouille. So it's like you can kind of pick where you want to spend and you know, where you want to drift to. And like, you know, I've learned my lessons, I think, the hard way too, in terms of certain characters I've bought into that, you know, just weren't worth it. But, you know, when breaks were going here, spots were by the case, not by the box. So, you know, if you wanted a Mickey, you're spending $1,000, no problem. For me, I was shooting for like Luca and Ratatouille, and I was spending, you know, $50 to $100 on the case though. So, you know, if I can get 1 to 2 numbered for it, it was like, I mean, I don't really rip too much anymore, but man, it was a fun time.
I love that tier list aspect of like, oh yeah, here's on the top, then princesses, and then all these other things. Like, I think that's a cool breakdown for it. But Donny, when you're at these card shows, how many people are taking or offering any sort of like Disney cards, whether it be Lorcana or the like? I feel on the couple I've been, I think maybe one. Yeah.
No, it's really hard to find. But the vendor that has it doesn't just have one, right? Like it's their whole case. Like they don't do Pokemon, like they do Lorcana or Disney, like Tops. Like they do something specific and they go all in on it, you know. And those people are really the most knowledgeable ones. You know, they'll tell you everything about that market, and you can pick their brain for an hour, because that's really like what they focus on, and they love to chat and kind of like spread the word for everybody else.
Yep.
Is it?
Yeah.
Sorry, no, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say in the spirit of you know, how I mentioned I went in all on one character specifically. Mine was a villain out of Luca, and I got so close to the rainbow. I found the Superfractor out in the UK. We agreed to a private deal. I wake up the next morning. It's sold on eBay for $500 more. At the end of the day, I collected everything down to the red. As of right now,
oh my goodness.
I have the black, I have the blue, I have the orange, I have the Mickey print, the gold, the aqua, the green, the diamond, the purple, and the pink. And man, let me tell you, when I got that close to getting the full rainbow, I thought it was going to be one of those sets that I could put on the shelf, and when my kids go to college, I'll take it off, and you know, maybe we'll make something happen. But man, it was that was a heartbreaker. That was a heartbreaker to lose that Superfractor. But I ended up selling the red to, not sure if you guys are familiar with High End Case Breaks out in California. He does a lot of PSA grading. He's an authorized dealer, and he was tasked by Topps to go out and collect a master set of the reds. So I had one of 3 cards he didn't have, and we ended up having a deal, and I sent it off to him, and unfortunately the rainbow was no more. But man, that was a fun time.
Wait, when you say Luca, you're not talking about the basketball player?
I was
like
so
I legit
confused.
when you were literally you said Luca, and then at the first couple cards I couldn't really tell. I was like, maybe that is Luka Doncic, you know?
No, Luca Paguro.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Well, color me educated. I've never heard of this character before. Just being honest, I don't have any kids and I don't watch Disney. So, but yeah, I was very confused. I was like, that looks like a cartoon character. Maybe it's like a cartoon sketch of Luka Doncic. Nope, it's not. It's not.
Hey, I wouldn't be
somebody
surprised
completely
if Luca collectors out there start drifting over. You never know.
There you go. There you go.
That is phenomenal. So when we were talking a second though about like not many card vendors having this, obviously you're somebody that's really into it. But when on one of the card shows that I went to, one table, I was kind of just like chatting, and there was a dad and his daughter there, and it randomly like brought up Stranger Things because they had Star Wars. They had like a lot of, I guess, like the unique kind of like obscure cards, if you will, at a card show. And I was like, oh, do you guys have like anything Stranger Things related? And they were like, or the daughter was like, wait, Stranger Things has cards? And I was like, yeah. Do you think that there's a problem of like just discoverability that Disney has trading cards, or is it more that like the people that have the disposable income and the older people that are out there and buying these in droves just maybe aren't interested as much because it's maybe a different demographic for some of them?
Yeah, I honestly think it's just the getting the word out there for the most part. I think it's just there's not enough eyes on it. I think to Donnie's point, like you don't really see it at shows. It's not really out there. Where you find it is Whatnot, it's eBay, it's Reddit, it's Discord, it's a lot of word of mouth. So like I think the discoverability, it may be slower to meet up with some of the rest of these markets, but I think what's really cool about it is it's less liquid, but it's way more stable. And what I mean by that is for the most part, a lot of the comps that you see sold stay pretty in line over time, and if not steadily growing, which I can appreciate if I'm gonna pay a few $100s for a certain character's card, even though I know I can't get rid of it in the next 6 months, I just want to make sure that I'm at least breaking even, if I need to do something with it at another point. So, I think it's not for everybody by any means, but, for people that I think PC certain things and, like different niche markets like me, I think it definitely has some legs to it. And I think it's just getting started considering we're only 2 years since its inception print run.
So, Nicky, we're wrapping up with you in a second, but number one, first of all, I feel like I love your energy. You got recommended from Fizzy, and I was like, I have no idea what to expect, I'm thoroughly impressed with all of your stuff, so I'd love to have you on again. But if you were going to give kind of any thoughts or perspectives on somebody that's like, hey, you know what, that sounds kind of cool, maybe I do want to get into Disney cards, what would you kind of say, here's a good place to start, a certain set, or maybe just kind of cards if you're going for singles?
Yeah. I'd say if you're looking to get started, the 2025 set is still awesome, and it's actually fairly affordable right now. If you want to buy blasters or megas, you don't need to spend $300 on a hobby box, or honestly, I think it's closer to $500 at this point. So you can still absolutely rip a product like this. And I would just say, find your character and just collect your character, and you can start there and you start to see what you really like. And, I think as it starts to get things like autos, right? Like you can start to really find some pockets there, and the sketch cards I think are just a new level of the artistry and the things that they're doing. So I just hope they keep expanding. They keep making just really cool quality products. Most importantly, quality products. So no, I would just say open up a few boxes and find your character. And man, you can have a lot of fun with this. So now, thank you guys. Really appreciate you having me on. And look forward to next time.
Yeah, of course. All right, enjoy your afternoon. We'll chat soon, boss.
Take care. See you guys.
Donny, why do we keep having like the best guests here? I swear to God, every time we got somebody on, they're great. They're great. I love it.
Dog, you know what? I cannot stop thinking, what if like Woody from Toy Story gets a DUI? Like, what would happen to his car prices if he just gets a DUI or goes to jail for like abuse or something like that? Like, great, like, Sid from Toy Story like ends up like committing terrorism or something like that. And,
dude.
Could you imagine what would happen to those cards?
Unreal. I mean, that's what they talked about with sports cards, right? That's what they talked about with sports cards. But our next guest, Pretzel's coming up. We're going to be talking about One Piece. But again, these streams are presented by Sync. So if you're into One Piece and you're wanting to go to card shows, keep an eye on your collection. You can scan away. Of course, there's Riftbound, Vibes, TCG, Pokemon, and a whole lot more. But let's bring Pretzel up here and get into the nitty gritty about One Piece, which I'm definitely not an expert in. But that's why we got Pretzel. Pretzel, lovely to see you. How are we doing today?
Yo. What's going on, dude? I'm still laughing about the DUI Woody thing I was talking about.
Well, what do you think?
It's a possibility. It's a possibility.
Yeah, you can get a DUI on a horse, so it's possible, dude. 100% possible.
The ride of choice. The ride of choice. So, Pretzel, you are somebody that I have noticed have been complaining a lot about One Piece, but you're also one of the most passionate people I've seen regarding it. So, talk to us a little bit about how maybe you got into One Piece in the first place.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I think a lot of people who are passionate about stuff, like, they love to complain, especially like TCG players, dude. Like, we all love to complain. Yeah, so I've been, like, watching and reading One Piece for, like, 20 plus years, you know, like, since I was a kid. And then the game came out, I think it's about to be 4 years. And no one really played it in our area, so there was, like, a very small group of people that were playing the game. When it first came out, they had, like, essentially like their version, like a beta deck. It was called a super pre-release. And I think it was like 15, 20 bucks. You could pay, go to the event. Everyone would pretty much get like the same decks. There was 4 of them. And you'd just play like an event and kind of learn how to play the game. They were pretty sick. They had like gold foiling stamps and super pre-release on them. And then everybody kind of played with them for a little bit, beat them up, and then just kind of forgot about them. Set 1 came out and it was kind of still a little bit slow, but people really enjoyed the game. And then as obviously time went on, it just became more and more popular. A lot of it's, I think, because of the gameplay. Like, it's a very simple game to understand. Super easy to pick up, super easy to understand. But it's also like one of the biggest IPs in the world, right? There was a news article or a post the other day about how Eiichiro Oda, who's the creator of One Piece, has sold more volumes than like 99% of other publications, right? It's like getting close to being up there with like Shakespeare and the Bible and like the amount of like mangas or books that he sold over the series. So it's a huge IP. I mean, everyone's starting to watch it now through like the live action. They're getting ready to do a remake of the anime through like another studio. So I think that'll also like onboard a lot of people who, you know, were a little intimidated because it has like 1,400 episodes. So now that there's a remake, you know, it's a lot easier to kind of get emotionally invested into a new show from episode 1.
Well, one of the things we brought up a little bit earlier in the stream was the fact that they're just like killing it on the marketing front, from the Popeyes thing to the Dodgers collab to the, you know, NCAA basketball tournaments and everything like that. I don't know if there's a whole lot of other card games that are doing anything even remotely like that. Like, obviously Pokemon has done the collabs out in Japan, but it feels like One Piece is on a level in their own. So what do you think about the way that they've marketed things?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I guess I have a unique perspective, right? So I used to work at Azuki, at Chiru, and when I was working on anime.com, there was a lot of kind of similar things that we'd run into. Like, we talked to a lot of the licensing teams, we talked to a lot of IP owners, and Japanese IP owners are like really interesting to work with. And I think One Piece is obviously doing a really good job, because most IPs, they have a production committee, which is usually like 5 or 6 huge businesses that will invest in making like an anime. So there'll be a manga, there's the manga's creator, and then they get like 4 or 5 other people to come together and say, hey, we're gonna finance making this IP into an anime. And once it gets to that stage, it gets a little complicated to do licensing, because you need like everybody's buy-in. You need to convince, you know, all 5 or 6 of these people that this collab is good for them as like an IP. It's not going to hurt the reputation. They're going to make money. So that's why a lot of anime don't do a lot of like collaborations like these. So it's really cool seeing One Piece do them, and doing them like at such a high quality. Because typically, like, when you see a collab with a major brand or a food brand or a sports team, it's like, hey, here's a T-shirt or here's a poster. But like the Dodgers Luffy, myself and one of my other previous coworkers at Azuki, we both went to the game that night. We weren't able to get the card. I was so pissed.
Were people inside trying to offer cash? Because we were watching videos earlier of the US one. Was it chaos too, or?
Yeah, it was crazy. And they only had a certain amount of cards for each gate you went in. So like if you went in the wrong gate and they had no cards, like you're screwed. So like we were in there and there was a guy selling them. I was like, dude, I'll pay you like $300 for a card. They were paying $100. I was like, I'll give you $300 right now. Like I just want a card. Like I just want to play with it, because like all the cards that I get, I typically play with. Unless it's like something super, super crazy, then I'll play with it.
Well, so for that Dodger card, it is playable then as well, even though it's a very exclusive promo. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was like 10 or 15,000 of them printed. But yeah, you can play with pretty much all the cards that they make, unless it's a foreign language. So like you can't use Japanese cards in English, like games. You can't use French cards in English games or whatever, Chinese. Like you have to play in your own language.
Interesting. That's fascinating. So one of the things that we talked about of what we wanted to go into when you were jumping on is the Red Bull Double Dawn tournament. And I do have to admit that I'm still fairly new on trying to understand everything One Piece related. I've picked up a couple cards, but you see this and you're like, okay, wow, One Piece again with a major collab. But what the heck is the Double Dawn tournament? Yeah,
that was actually super cool. Like I said, I think One Piece does a really good job with their collaborations, but Red Bull also does a really good job. So kind of same thing, calling back to Azuki, we did a collab with them with Red Bull and F1. And their standards are through the roof. They have like a really good eye for quality. So they came up with this event, like a marketing event tournament. And I think there were 75 locations in the US where you could go compete in this tournament. I believe it was free to enter, or maybe it was a couple bucks to enter. And they just took one of the resource cards, which are called Dawn, and they turned it, see how it says like plus 2,000? Normally it's just plus 1,000. So they like kind of gave it some Red Bull and like bumped it up, doubled the value of it. So like when you're playing your cards, you can attach those to different like characters and increase their powers and stuff. So they only gave you one of those. And the winner from that tournament got a prize card, which is that one you see on the right. And then if you won, I believe they covered your hotel in Milwaukee. So 150 people went to Milwaukee to compete in like the sort of championship of this event. And that's where you saw like a lot of those. It's that same card, but it has like gold foiling or silver foiling. There's like some winner cards. They gave away a lot of crazy good prizing. One Piece does a really good job with their prizes.
I honestly don't own any One Piece cards. But I'm a huge Red Bull fan. So when this came out, I was like, oh, I need one of these cards for my collection. So I don't know if I'm going to buy it raw or just go ahead and buy it graded. But like being a Red Bull fan, I feel like I need this card. So
yeah, with
definitely
One Piece, you're generally safe buying them raw. Dude. Their quality control is insane, right? Like I don't know if you collect like Pokemon cards or like any other TCGs. The amount of cards that Pokemon prints is like 10 or 15 times higher. So like their quality control is a little harder to keep consistent just because of the volume. But One Piece, they print way less, and they print a majority of them in Japan. They're looking to start printing in the US soon, from what I heard. But yeah, their quality control is insane. So like I'll buy raw cards all the time, and I'll grade them.
The quality would probably drop immensely if they printed them in the US compared to Japan. I mean,
I'm hoping not, but yeah, I think so too.
I've graded some One Piece cards before, and they have crazy high gem rates, like 90% plus on like almost every single card, unless there's a known defect with that card. Yeah. So One Piece is incredible to grade.
Yeah, it's like 90%.
The aspect of the competitive side of things, when I went to a bunch of local shops the other day, I was met with every single one of them advertising their Riftbound nights. Yeah. Not a single one of them had anything One Piece related. But last week we had Cost Effective on, and he was like, yeah, my entire store is One Piece players. And it feels, at least from my small kind of network here and talking with you, that it feels like at different parts of the world there is clusters of players for this. What's your perspective? Do you think that it's going to be one of the main card games out in these stores? How can they do a better job of getting people in there? Because again, where I am in Canada, at least maybe it's a small area that I am, they were pushing Riftbound, but not One Piece.
Yeah, a lot of it's mainly due to distribution. So I don't know if you know really how the distribution works. Right now, Bandai only distributes to two North American distributors, the two biggest ones. One's called Alliance, The other one's called GTS. Alliance, if I remember right, they're in the Northeast, and then GTS is on the West Coast. So they only distribute to those two. And just because of the low amount of print volume that they have, is like a huge limiting factor of like which stores can get what. So if you're a newer store, or you haven't really been like doing One Piece since the beginning, it's almost impossible to get like authorized to distribute it. So there's like a huge gap from that aspect. Like in our area, there are like, I'll say like 10 stores within, like 20 miles of me. Maybe 3 of them or 4 of them can distribute, and 1 or 2 of them are like a serious store for One Piece. So like the store that I go to, we usually have like 30 to 60 players, depending on the kind of event, to come play. And then again, like because they don't print so much, it's hard to get product, and a lot of stores aren't really willing to sell it to people that just like come in off the street, like, hey, like I'm looking for some sealed One Piece. They'll kind of like laugh you off if they're a good store, unless they have a lot of product. Our store will do like a pre-release event, and if you go to a pre-release, like it's like $30. You get 6 packs to play the event, and then afterwards, if you come to the store and you play often enough, like we'll let you buy a box at MSRP, and then generally by then, like most of the product's gone. Like there may be some that comes up later, but unless there's like a reprint or a restock, it's usually gone the first or second night of like pre-release, and it's going to the players. It's not going to just like random people off the street.
Well, I wanted to ask you about this because this announcement is not new by any means, but I feel like it was really interesting. So if you haven't seen, this was back in January of 16. I mean, sorry, you've seen it, but anybody watching. And so this was the announcement. To help prevent resale and ensure the continued availability of our products, we will remove the plastic shrimp wrap from booster boxes at the time of purchase in all U.S. One Piece card game official shops. We sincerely appreciate your understanding and cooperation. Now, apparently this is something that also happens a lot in Japan for Pokemon, where they might even quiz you on making sure that you know Pokemon overall. But when this announcement came out, what was your thoughts on it? And then obviously a couple months now later, what's your thoughts on it again?
Yeah, I didn't really have like a strong opinion either way, because this generally only affects like I think there's like 6 stores in the U.S. that are
really?
They're like
that's
official,
so weird.
Yeah,
like
big official.
It's a 6 store.
Yeah, they're like it's like the official Bandai stores. So there's like one in New York, one in Chicago. There's a few, I think, in California, one in Texas. I think maybe one more somewhere else. And they've actually been doing this for a little bit, kind of on and off. And so from what I understand, like actual stores that sell One Piece don't necessarily have to do that. Or if they're supposed to, like some stores don't. Like there's no real like monitoring of it. But yeah, from my understanding, like it only affected like the official Bandai stores. Which isn't like a huge amount of supply, like in the print run. So I didn't have like a strong opinion of it either way. I do think it's good. Like it does prevent people from trying to buy and flip and resell, because that's generally the problem from like a player's perspective, is just getting cards. I think it was around OP10 or OP11, which is like 5 or 6 sets ago. Like you could buy a box and get most of the cards that you need, and at like a pre-release event, people would trade for the cards that they need. Now it's really hard. It should start getting better, but yeah, it's really hard to try to get like cards. There was a tournament last weekend that I went to, and some of my buddies that were playing were struggling to find the last couple cards that they needed for their decks.
Oh, really?
Tournament. Yeah, for this tournament, because the cards just came out. But yeah, it's been a little bit of a weird scenario as like a player, but.
Well, isn't that the same thing with Pokemon though? Like, I guess okay. So let me backtrack for a second. What's your thoughts on the fact that it seems like almost every trading card game right now that has some kind of popularity right now is just impossible to find, or like way overpriced at the majority of stores?
Yeah, it is both of those things, right? Like it is from like Pokemon. I don't really play Pokemon. I've never really played it, but I believe it's kind of the same scenario, right? Like if you go to a store that holds Pokemon tournaments and you're a consistent player there, like you're generally going to find product. If you are going to like retail, Target, Walmart, whatever, it's going to be a bad time. Kind of the same thing for One Piece. I think One Piece is a little bit different, just because of how the game is played from what I understand, my friends that play Pokemon, they generally don't have problems finding cards that they need, because a lot of times, a lot of cards I think do similar things. So most of the Pokemon craze is just more around like collectability over like playing. I could be wrong. That's just what I've been told. When it comes to One Piece, the card prices are generally dictated by two things. One, like character popularity. So like any main character is going to be expensive. And then two, it's by like playability. So there's some cards that are not necessarily rare in the last set that came out, but they were like $50, $60. Because one, they're hard to find, and two, they're just very good cards to play with. So those are usually the two like driving factors for One Piece. Yeah.
Cool. I mean, random question too. I've seen more people post about the One Piece mangas, and obviously for the trading cards, there's a lot of different variants, and people are collecting on that front. But what's your takes on the collectability of the manga? Do you think the people? I mean, I feel like books are sort of like a weird, people like trading cards. That's a cool thing. For books and mangas, I don't know if it's as cool.
Yeah, it's actually kind of like a gap in. Oh, my dog's whining at me. It's kind of like a gap in like something I was paying attention to, but it makes a lot of sense. Like at the end of the day, people love to collect things that they enjoy, and like first edition books or first edition comics, like that's been a thing, since like the 60s or the 70s when people really started getting heavy into like the collectability aspect. So yeah, I do think it's really cool. I do think that it's going to get harder and harder to find like some of these like collecting worthy, because the manga came out 25 plus years ago or something like that. So like the actual first editions, like it's just like any other sort of like Veblen good collectability thing. Like look at Pokemon cards. How many first edition Charizards are there? Not a lot, because no one really cared back then. So yeah, I do think like some of these first edition mangas, or even some of the what are they called, like cell sheets from like the actual animation, like where they hand drew like scenes. That's been a huge collecting thing for a while in Japan. You can go to Japan, there's some like specialty stores and find stuff like that pretty easily, and it's very expensive. You go to an anime convention, you can find them. There's usually one or two vendors at like Anime Expo, which is in LA. It's the biggest one in the US. There's one or two vendors that's all they do is they sell like those panels of art from the manga or from the anime. So yeah, I don't think those types of things to collect are going to go anywhere. Obviously as more and more people sort of fall in love with an IP, and I think One Piece is going to be one that is a little bit easier for younger people because it is going to be redone. I don't think that stuff's going anywhere.
I'm curious what you think of all these different collabs, though, because I know we talked about it a second ago, but the fact that it seems like One Piece could legitimately collab with anyone that they want to, it definitely feels like MLB, like they're partnered with some teams, but it doesn't seem like all of them. And then on the food front, they're being somewhat specific. They were supposed to do the McDonald's one before because of the Pokemon craziness that happened. They canceled that. And then, we're doing the Popeyes thing, which looking at videos of people around the block, the bento boxes, two of them, somebody bought for $800. So they're going like $400 a pop, and it's like, that seems ridiculous. But I mean, I guess if the demand's there, so I mean, if you let me ask a heater, if you were in charge of One Piece, who would be two brands that you think would be the most valuable to partner with?
Yeah, I think oh man, it's kind of on the spot. Two brands. I do think that like the food collabs are really good. It's pretty on brand for like the IP, like the main character Luffy, like he loves eating food. They have a chef in the pirate crew, so I think stuff like that makes a lot of sense. I think you could also do like music. Music's a pretty big piece of the series. There was a whole movie about one of the characters who was a singer. So I think they could pretty much do like some sort of band collab. I don't know if you kept up with or if you know anything about like League of Legends. So League of Legends, they had their own sort of like bands made with characters. I think One Piece could do something
KDA
similar.
or whatever.
Yeah, KDA. They had a few. Yeah, they had a few. I think they could do something like that as a collab with like a band. And then just like music in general is pretty big for a lot of like anime, right? Like each season has a new anime opener or a new artist or whatever. So I think keeping up with food is pretty easy layup, and doing music I think is also a pretty easy layup.
Yeah, I wonder on the video game front. Now that you now that you brought up League of Legends, I was like, I don't think that there's like a main One Piece game apart from the trading cards, like except for like video games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't played games too much. Now that I have a kid, like I kind of
Yeah,
stick
no,
to like
fair
one
enough.
or two things. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. So I guess when you're talking with your friends and you're finding people that are maybe getting into One Piece and they come to you and stuff, do you find that people are more getting into it from the collectability standpoint, or do you think like the main drive is people genuinely wanting to play the game?
I would say like 50% of it is for like the financial aspect. Like they see how crazy it's going, and like people just want to find like the next hot thing. So I'd say like half the people that reach out are strictly like financial. Like they want to know like, hey, what's worth collecting, what's not worth collecting, what do you think is going to go up in value, or what do you think is undervalued. And then I'd say it's a pretty small split from there, right? Like maybe 10 to 15% are interested in playing. And then like the other like 35 to 40% are looking to collect. And they're like, hey, here's my favorite character. Like, can you help me find like unique cards? Because when people come to me about collecting, they ask me like, hey, what's important to collect? And I sort of have like my own rules that I follow, which is I typically stay away from like manga cards unless they're like a main character, or it's from like a short print set, which is like premium booster. There's premium booster 1 and 2, or extra booster. There's extra booster 1, 2, and 3. Those are like extremely short printed sets, so the mangas in them are generally harder to find. Or if it's like a main character, like those mangas I'll look at. But they have SPs, which are like specials. There's 2 in every case. Again, like if it's not a main character, like I typically stay away from them because the amount of them that are out in the world are so high and the print quality is so high. You're just going to have a lot of natural 10s.
Well, I mean, because I want to go back to the thought you had
Sure.
about like the bands for a second and everything. Because when we had Nicky Cardboard on a minute ago, he was talking about this Luca character in Disney, which admittedly I had no idea what in the world he was referencing. And then it's like this green character, and I'm like, okay, well that's cool that somebody's really interested in it. But then he showed Frozone from The Incredibles. I'm like, okay, everybody knows exactly who that is. But when you go to One Piece, I feel like Luffy is a very well-known character. But then after that, I don't know if they've really pushed any of them for like a broader mainstream audience. And I'm saying that as somebody that's like kind of a passive observer. Do you agree with that or not really?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Outside of the US, there's only one other character that is like extremely popular. And it's in Japan. Her name's Uta. And she was from one of the movies. So, but to the rest of the world, it's Luffy. If you're like paying attention a little bit more, there's like Zoro and Sanji, which are like his 2 like right and left hand man, and then Nami, who's like one of the girls on the ship. So if you're not really paying attention, like those are the 4 names you've maybe heard. But yeah, unless you're like actively watching or people that are like big fans and they drop the names every now and then, yeah, like Luffy's the biggest one.
So people are now calling, or at least I saw one post earlier, and I feel like there's been ebbs and flows, but saying everybody's selling their Pokemon grails to go all in on One Piece. Do you feel like that's actually happening right now? What's it kind of looking, if you're looking like 5 years down the line, where do you think One Piece stands on the trading card ladder?
Yeah, I think that's generally ended or stopped. There was a point in time where a lot of people and a lot of vendors were trying to sell Pokemon to buy One Piece because One Piece was flying. I think One Piece has slowed down right now. And it's kind of in from a financial aspect, like a consolidation phase. So people are just kind of trying to figure out, like, hey, what do I want to keep? What do I think is worth holding long term? And then around August will be like the next anniversary set. So it'll be the fourth anniversary. They usually do some sort of like big event in Japan for One Piece Day. They may do something in the US this year too. So I think around like August, like people will start getting a little bit more excited again because the set will be hard to get. It's going to be pretty expensive, and kind of around the same time, right? Like the the live action's going, the new anime is going to, I think, start to get teased close to then too. So a lot of people, when they were talking to me about Pokemon versus like One Piece, like, hey, like once the series of One Piece is over, like it's done. I was like, no, that's not anywhere near true, right? Like look at Pokemon. Like the first iteration of it was the card game with the 151 Pokemon, and they came out with the anime with Ash, and then it's like after that, it's like, okay, well, that's it. No, it's not it, right? Like you have more characters, you have more stories. Like there's so much more that like people can do with it. So I think when people try to compare One Piece and Pokemon, it's just like an argument from bias. I think they're both great, right? Like people like what they like, but I think One Piece as an overall, from like a collecting or like a collectability standpoint, is like really early in its infancy. Most TCGs, if they can last 3 years, like and keep growing successfully, they'll usually have like a foothold to stay. So pending like Bandai or the IP holders like doing something really really weird, or like they stop making like high quality cards, or like they just stop making the game altogether, I don't think it's going to go anywhere for a long time.
When you talk about the One Piece Day, is that kind of similar to Pokemon Day where they have like just a bunch of announcements, or is it like different from that?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. Yeah, it's pretty similar. People go and they attend like a convention. And sometimes they have like events where you can go play and compete. You can go and get like promo cards for attending. And then they do like some events and stuff there. Yeah, so it's usually like the biggest event in Tokyo for like One Piece every year, because it's not just exclusive to the card game. It's talking about like the manga, it's talking about the anime, any games they're doing, like anything that they're doing around like One Piece. It's all things One Piece.
So we've seen a couple of new trading card games, and I know that we're wrapping up here. And again, thank you so much for coming on through.
Sure.
But we've seen where Azuki TCG, where I know you've been a part of a little bit, as you mentioned Azuki earlier, Vibes TCG that's off the Pudgy Penguins IP, and then Cyberpunk, kind of a more mainstream game, if you will. They're on Kickstarter. I think they've raised like well over $20 million, and I'm like, holy smoke. So what's your thoughts on so many different new trading card games coming out there? Just, I guess, kind of like general thoughts on just so many kind of entering the market right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of this stuff kind of follows in cycles. There's usually like a few year craze or a few year sort of like peak and valley of people's interests. I think a lot of like the TCG craze is kind of influenced off of people not really being able to get a lot of product that they want. So people are having a hard time getting Pokemon. People are now having a hard time getting One Piece. And then it moved over to Riftbound, and people were having a hard time getting Riftbound, and so I think there's like always sort of this ebb and flow of TCGs where, like a really popular IP will come out with a TCG, and a lot of its staying power is based on the player base. It's not necessarily based on like the collectors or the collectability, and if you can't get people to consistently play the game, it's a lot harder to get people to consistently buy product. And so like you can kind of see it with a few other TCGs that like Union Arena is another big one from Bandai, and that's the one that does a lot of collabs with other anime IP. Generally, like most shops are selling it at like a little bit above their cost, sometimes even sell it at their cost, so they can get rid of product. They just did a really big collab, and everybody wanted it. So it's like, every now and then there'll be something that is really, really popular and has a huge demand. And I think that if people are trying to build out their IP in like unique and creative ways, TCGs are a pretty good angle, because one, like people want to play something new, and they want to play a game with unique mechanics. People are pretty used to Magic, they're used to Pokemon. Now people are getting used to One Piece. So if card games can introduce unique mechanics that are like exclusive to their IP, it does draw people's attention. And then really from there, it's just up to like the game designers to make sure that the game is interactive enough and it's like well thought out that it can try to last to like that 3-year mark that I talked about earlier. Like if you can last 3 years and you have a growing consistent player base, like you're generally pretty good as a TCG game.
Amazing. Well, Pretzel, listen, I appreciate you coming on through. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. And final thoughts, I guess, on One Piece here. If somebody's thinking about getting into it, what are some of the reasons too?
Yeah, I think for me, like it's just a really simple game to understand. I think I used to play Magic a lot when I was a kid. I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot when I was a kid. Both of those games can be like really complicated, like when you're first starting out. I think One Piece is very approachable. I would also say that a lot of people in the community are also generally pretty nice. I haven't really had any sort of like bad interactions. trying to find a local place to play. Most people have like a shit ton of cards. They have a lot of bulk, and they're like willing to help you, figure out a deck that you want to play and help you put it together for like relatively cheap or sometimes even free. Like there's people that come into our shop all the time, and like we all kind of put our cards together and help someone build a deck. So it's like super approachable. Like I said, it's a pretty easy game to understand. So if you're wanting to, whether it's because you like One Piece or you just want to try out a card game, I think it's very approachable from like a new player.
Amazing. Well, what a way to send it off. Pretzel, appreciate you, and we'll talk soon, sir.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, peace. Guys, listen, we're just rocking and rolling here. As you know, Donny Slabs had to go. He didn't mention anything, but he let me know on the side. So we're keeping on going. We're keeping on going. And that means we got to bring in our next guest, which is the one and only Rare Finds. And Rare, you got to tell me if I'm glazing you too hard, because you're probably one of my favorite follows on X. Thank you so much for coming on through. How are we doing today, boss?
Hey, good, man. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound wonderful.
Great. Glad to be here. So what do you want to talk about?
So let's jump off on the rift here. So I guess from my perspective, from observing what you have been talking about, there's one of two things. Either one, you do a ton of research, or two, you have the best memory ever, because I feel like you are a historian on a couple of these things. And I came across this where you were talking about how some of these new Dragon Ball sets, or maybe a little bit older, as I'm not too familiar with it, are some that you were like, hey, people need to be paying attention to. And I feel like I never bring up Dragon Ball Z at all as a card game on this show. So why have you been paying attention to what's going on with Dragon Ball?
Yeah, so just a really quick refresher. I grew up with Dragon Ball. I grew up with Pokemon. I did not grow up with One Piece. I do a lot of research on TCG and collectibles more generally, but I did grow up with those IPs, so my learning curve was a lot smaller than like with One Piece and some other things. Why do I like the Dragon Ball? Well, so Bandai right now is doing a masterclass in TCG, right? They rebooted the One Piece in 2022. By the way, this was not Bandai's first go at One Piece TCG. This is actually their third iteration since the 2000s. A lot of people don't even know that. So in 2024, Bandai rebooted the Dragon Ball TCG. They still have another universe of TCG called Masters, and while it's not defunct, it's a clear pivot away from Masters, and they have this thing called Fusion World now. So Bandai is literally running the same playbook, okay, with Fusion World that they've done with the One Piece has garnered so much attention. They named the sets. They make it very easy. In Fusion World, it's FBO1. In One Piece, it's OPO1. Their yearly anniversary sets in One Piece, the first year anniversary was OPO5. The first year anniversary in Dragon Ball Fusion World was OPO5. I'm sorry, FBO5. The best promo card in One Piece is the OG 1 of 700 Luffy serialized card. The top promo card in Dragon Ball Fusion World is the Son Goku 1 of 777 serialized card. You see where I'm going with this? Like, they're making it, they've given you the playbook and they're just running it back turbo. So they're applying a lot of the lessons and success from One Piece now to a franchise or IP that's largely been dormant since 2018 was the last original animated series. When it was 2018. And then Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball, passed away a couple of years ago. So they've been in a transition period of deciding, what's next. Are there going to be new animes? Are there going to be new video games? There's new animes returning next year in 2027. So there's a lot of the reason why I said to get ahead on Dragon Ball Fusion World is because the catalysts in the future are going to be mostly in 2027 and beyond. So you have some real opportunities right now in that space before it really takes off.
Okay, you're insane, by the way. Just absolute insane in terms of the memory and the insights. Like truly fascinating individual to follow and hear from. Love
Thanks,
that I'm
man.
getting love that I'm getting to chat with you here. But
very
like,
kind.
can I ask a question? It's maybe a little bit obscure, but I mean, so
Yeah.
we're talking about how Dragon Ball is like maybe been dormant for a little bit. Some people that are super fans will be like, no, it's the greatest show ever and been into it forever. But I agree with that sentiment. But it feels like through trading cards, a lot of dormant brands can be brought back. Do you think that that's a legitimate take or thought? Or do you think, no, that's only going to work for like a small, minute amount of them if they were to get into it?
Well, it really depends upon the publisher of the card. So how front and center is Bandai going to put that product out? Are they making a real marketing effort with tournaments and lucrative prizes? And they're doing that with Fusion World, just like they're obviously doing it with the One Piece TCG that was rebooted in 2022. So how much time and attention and care that they put into this Bandai is really going to that to me is just as important as the actual strength of the IP. Of course, you need a user base and you need interest, but you need the marketing. And so, Bandai has some other smaller IP, which a lot of people actually surprisingly don't know about. It's under the Union Arena TCG umbrella. And what it does is encompasses a lot of, like 10 plus IP from Weekly Shonen Jump issues, which are Japanese magazines that contain individual chapters or comics for different franchises. And so what they do is they have licenses for IP like Demon Slayer and JJK and I think more recently Solo Leveling, all which are more popular modern mangas and IP and anime IPs. But to kind of go back to original point, Dragon Ball started in 1984. One Piece was in 1997. Pokemon was in 1996. So, I'm like my favorite in the modern IP is Demon Slayer, and that came out only in 2016. So it's just hitting 10 years since its first comic issue, which was in 2016, Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 11. Okay, and I posted about that and how people are really going to miss the boat if they don't do that pretty soon. So that, like, I'm sticking with what I think are the winners. Like anytime I've over diversified, so your question about like, aren't there so many other IPs? I mean, sure, there are, but I like conviction. If I'm right, I'm right. Like I'm really right. And if I'm wrong, that's okay. I can accept it.
Of course. Damn. Dude, it's fascinating to listen to you. So let's continue on here because you were mentioning some of the earliest cards, and is this one the serialized one that you were talking about? Because I don't know if that one.
Yeah. So that card is what they call it. It's the super. It comes from a starter deck. So prior to the OPO1, which was the base set for the modern Bandai that was released in 2022. There's two different versions of OPO1. Romance Dawn is the story arc. There's the blue bottom, which you probably heard about. Those are the first prints because they contained error cards or errata cards. And so they were corrected. And when Bandai corrected it, they replaced the bottom of the boxes for Romance Dawn with white bottoms. And so, I think at the peak in late January of this year, the blue bottoms were selling for $7,000 US, 8,000 maybe. Then they went down. There was a retracement around 40%, I think, maybe 5,500, 5,000. Anyway, what you're showing there in the image is a card that was part of a starter deck that came out. I think the starter deck's called ST Starter Deck 01. And specifically, there were different, that came out before the Romance Dawn Blue Bottom. That was basically not a promo, but just it was like it's called a pre-release, is what it is. It's a pre-release to Romance Dawn. So, but here's the interesting thing. There's a lot of different versions of that pre-release. And there's one little tiny box it's starter deck number 1 and has a red color on it. And you can find those on eBay, but they usually go for, I think in current markets, between like $1,500 to $2,000. Now, here's the kicker. Let's just say first print or first edition on that box. Otherwise, you're wasting your money. So the cards you're looking at comes from the starter deck, but it comes from the first print edition, which is only on that red box as the words first print or first edition. So that is, but what it is, what you're looking at is it's called a pre-release, super pre-release. There's also another really good card in there, probably more valuable, called the super pre-release winner. Someone has been tagging me in replies saying, "What, you don't like this card?" Yeah, bro, I like the card, but I'd like, I don't have unlimited money, and that card is now $8,000, and the one I posted about is, $2,500, and a little bit easier for people to break into the market. So there's really two top tier cards from that super pre-release, as long as you're looking at the first version or first print. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, we're just seeing still like a lot of high value cards. Like, I mean, even in the sports world, like I felt like a month ago we had records being broken for like all these individual players being like, oh, the highest sale of this card, that card, whatever. I mean, for Pokemon cards, we're still seeing it of, oh, hey, this is the highest Rayquaza card or whatever else under the sun. And it feels like we are permanently breaking records like almost on a weekly basis. Like, how do you read things? Because now I mean, even more so than a month ago of people saying, oh yeah, this is the top on Pokemon cards or this, that, and the other thing. And at the same time, people are super bullish on some of the newer trading card games that aren't, the ones that have been out for years upon years. So what's your take on the fact that stuff is selling at such insane heights where, a lot of it is completely unattainable for some people, but also it gets the attention at the same time?
For sure. Yeah. And, a lot of the audience, I'll make posts where, I'll provide recommendations that are, lower cost items, and then posts where I'll say, here are the 4 most valuable One Piece cards. And, the entry point to all of those is, minimum $8,000. So, clearly I understand that, my audience is pretty diverse. I talk to a lot of really serious collectors privately, advising them, just sharing thoughts just for fun and just to establish, context and relationships. Your point about like, I get asked this question all the time, is it local toppy? And my response every time is, as to what? Are you talking modern Pokemon that's released in the last 2 years? Are you talking about, One Piece in general? Are you talking about, because like I'm a firm believer that the, vintage Pokemon cards, what I've talked about, incessantly, and that's my strongest conviction. Look, I love One Piece. I love Dragon Ball, but the king of TCG is Pokemon. And so when I first started collecting TCG cards as a kid, I lost all my cards because I was a military brat. So God knows where they are now. So, I got more serious about 10 years ago in terms of buying them back. And, but I focused exclusively at the time on true vintage Pokemon cards, because ultimately I think it all flows back to that. And so I would say that, vintage Pokemon is an entirely separate market. And by vintage, I mean Wizards of the Coast, from the inception through the end of their relationship in like 2002, 2003, 2001. That's what I consider, vintage Pokemon. But so that's my kind of retort is, what market? Anyone who asks, do you think the collectible market is, is toppy? Well, then I'll say, well, look at the, Ohtani rookie cards. Not toppy. If you think he's going to go down as, the third, fourth, or fifth, best baseball player to ever live. He's already won 2 World Series, 3 MVPs. He might win a Cy Young this year. I mean, like, so there's always unicorns within the collectibles market as a whole that I like to carve out. And those are the ones that thankfully I focus most of my attention on. So yeah, sorry, I see your screen now with the.
No, I just brought it up because you brought up Shohei. No, it's perfect. You're listening. You're killing the segue. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I'm on my bike, which is why I sound kind of out of breath. I'm just trying to get some exercise in. I know you've been running a lot, so good for you, man.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
I'm trying to get my cardio back too. Yeah, so like Shoei, right? He's the easiest invest. Like I feel more secure. I don't really like to buy sports cards anymore. There's a lot of risks at issue, and frankly, a lot of the top athletes that you would think are attractive to invest in, like, Wemby, right? Who could go down as one of the 5 best basketball players ever. But he's also 7'7". He had a blood clot being on an airplane last year, had to end the season prematurely. He could break his leg, never come back the same. He's 7'7". Panini also overprinted his rookie cards and his auto rookie cards. So there's more of them than you would think. So I haven't invested in Wemby. But with Ohtani, by the way, I'm not advising to buy Ohtani right now. Good luck. Like that card that's pinned right there, there's been sales at 10K or higher. And I recommend it to my friends publicly, like on Spaces, and posted about it before. When that card in that image was around $2,000. And also at a time when it wasn't certain that was indeed his first rookie card, because those moments of uncertainty about, the chronology of events, is this the first rookie card? That's like your arbitrage if you do your research. And, that's where I've tried to make my bet. And I protect myself by getting the alternative. Like, okay, if that's not the first Ohtani rookie card, then this is. So then I'll get both. But I was doing that 5 or 6 years ago. Now you see Beckett talking about the BBM cards, which are the Japanese publisher cards from 2016. Beckett did a post today saying Ohtani signed it. 2016 isn't even Ohtani's rookie card year. It's 2013. So even Beckett's not hip to it yet, or they're playing like they're not. So there's still room for growth in those cards, but Ohtani's rookie cards are, up and to the right only. But he's a unicorn. But I'm not bullish on sports cards in general. He's just, he's a unicorn. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, well, it's funny in BL8. I don't know if you can see some of the stuff that's popped up on the screen, but he just said it's crazy this guy can spit history of 8 different franchises while going hard on a Peloton, which is hilarious. But
I mean, if you love something, and if you have a decent memory like I do, it's easy, right? Like I can tell when people talk about collectibles if they really love it or if it's just a pure investment. Like I love the hunt, man. Like the hunt of finding something. Like I get more joy from finding something at 2:30 in the morning on eBay for $200 that like nobody knows about, and like the seller, and then like praying the seller is going to ship me that item without realizing what they just did in the future. Like I enjoy that more than top blasting a card at $5,000 and might go to $8,000 in 2 years. Like it's a lot easier said than done, but that's what I love, man. So I appreciate the compliment, but I enjoy it. So it's easy, but yeah. So like, what else you got? Like, I'm happy to provide more like specifics, but I just double down on what I believe in. Like I don't believe in like in like sports cards. My bet is with Ohtani, and then to a lesser degree, I like Yamamoto, who was the World Series MVP. And until further notice, is the best pitcher in the world. He started the season out like that, certainly ended the last season like that. And, I talked about in Japan. All right, here's a little bit of alpha. Okay, so, and it's actually kind of easy to glean for my posts about the Japanese rookie cards, because the cat's kind of out of the bag on that. So, Ohtani was 2013, and BBN is the publisher for cards in Japan, and then 2017 was Yamamoto. So here's the alpha: is that if you believe in some new Japanese prospects for baseball, I don't really believe in basketball cards anymore or NFL cards. Tom Brady's a unicorn like Ohtani, but Tom Brady's, Bowman Chrome rookie card is $10,000 now. So, no thanks on chasing that personally. But if you believe in these Japanese, who are phenoms in their country coming over to the MLB, and by the way, there's a couple this year. There's a pitcher on the Houston Astros. There's a guy out in the White Sox who opened up with like 3 home run games in a row or something like that. Go look at their rookie cards in Japan, not just the rookie in the MLB. Yamamoto came over 2 years ago to the MLB, but his rookie card in Japan was in 2017. So use that same reasoning. And then here's the further alpha on that subject for Japanese BBM rookie cards. There are different rookie cards that I would make a priority. I would try to figure out what is the first overall rookie card period for that athlete in under the BBM. Okay. Sometimes it's easy to figure out, other times it's surprisingly annoying. Then the second priority actually is the top priority, but it's 1A and 1B, is what is the quote flagship version? That's the language they use in Japan to describe they call them flagship rookie cards, which aren't always the first rookie card, but they call them flagship. And usually what you'll see on the label of the slab, because again, it's in Japanese, it'll say first version. So when you see the word, Yamamoto, and it says first version in the slab, first version means that's going to be the quote flagship rookie card in Japan. So Ohtani's flagship rookie card is called a first version, right? And it's in a red, what is it? First version in red something, red color or something. That goes for $22,000 in rising. And Yamamoto's is around 2,000 to 2,500. So the alpha is take what I just said and apply it to some recent MLB rookies, including from this year, who are Japanese, and try to figure out what you think are worth investing in the future.
Golden drop in the alpha. Look at that. BL8, I hope you're writing this down. Also, he said, I hate how difficult it is in baseball to determine the true rookie, which I guess is sort of what you've been highlighting throughout this. But there's one kind of final topic that I wanted to kind of discuss with you, because I feel like you're perfect for this. As you mentioned vintage Pokemon cards a moment ago, and you said that your bet for sports was really heavily on Ohtani. And so I'm curious, I feel like there's kind of like a two-headed dragon of what's better, the vintage Charizard cards or the rookie Ohtanis or earlier Ohtanis. If you were going to kind of look at those two and give like a perspective.
Charizard, the original Charizard.
Really? Right away answer. Okay, okay.
Someone asked me the same question a couple of months ago before the Logan Paul auction, which was like the most obvious outcome in the world. But they asked me, would you rather have Michael Jordan, floor rookie cards, PSA 10? And I said, no, I'd rather have the first edition Charizard, because there is no risk with Charizard. It is the leader of TCGs. It is the chase character of TCGs. Pikachu's in the second place, by the way. And those are the only character cards, with few exceptions, that I buy from vintage is Charizard and Pikachu. And unless I'm trying to complete a set, but for something, no, easy answer. As great as Ohtani is, and as great as obviously Michael Jordan is, best athlete in the last 40 years, it's still Charizard. He's the leader. It's the card. Look, very easy. But yeah,
Well,
yeah.
so I guess like part of that, on like a really weird like side thought is we have the concern of whenever you mention sports cards of, okay, what if there's an injury or whatnot? But I would make the argument that if something happened to Shohei here, like would his cards not just go absolutely crazy, or do you think that the manufacturers would still print a bunch of cards from him anyway? Which I guess you would then have the arguments of cards from now versus cards from then. But I feel like he is the unicorn as you described Tom Brady earlier.
Yeah, I mean, look, he could stop playing today. He's what, 32 years old. He has 3 MLB MVPs. He's been World Series MVP. He's already cemented his legacy as the top 5 baseball player who ever lived. So he could stop today. He could pull a Michael Jordan, just retire at the top of his game. Remember, Michael Jordan retired after a three-peat. Ohtani, if they win, the Dodgers win this World Series, it's a three-peat. Like, but they don't even need to do that. Like, he could just be done today. Yamamoto has a lot more work to go, and he's not in the conversation of Ohtani. He's not in the same universe as Ohtani, but then nobody else is. So for now, at least, and probably never will be. But still, it's Charizard, man. Like, it's the king of an entire industry. It's, I'll tell you the 2 cards, speaking of vintage Pokemon cards, and this may be some alpha for your viewers, but a lot of people have been buying up the 1996 Japanese no rarity symbol cards. Are you familiar with those?
From your posts.
Yeah. So I've encouraged people to look into these for years. What it is the 30-year anniversary of Pokemon relates back to 1996. Obviously, 1996 was the launch of the Game Boy games in Japan, but it was also the launch of the TCG in Japan, and they don't have a thing called first edition cards. Unlike in the US, it has a stamp. It says, first edition on the cards, or first edition from 1999. Well, the equivalent to a first edition were what they call, was released on October 20th of 1996. And that was the first TCG. Well, I'll hold that thought for a second. But they were released, and they had no rarity symbol. So they didn't have a small black circle in the bottom right-hand corner. And so that's why they call it, there's no rarity symbol, meaning it's not on there. It was supposed to be on there on the cards, but it wasn't. So it was an error. Those are the equivalents of first edition cards. So those are the first edition Japanese TCG. And the 1996, first edition English that gets all the love and attention, those came out 3 years later, and they're carbon copies. And so I've always been of the opinion that for a long time, as in from 2021 to about Q3 of last year, 2025, the first edition English 1999 Pokemon cards were selling at least 2x in the grails, if not more, sometimes 3x from the Japanese no rarity symbol cards. And I was like, I'm always operating from the framework of, rookie cards. Well, the rookie cards are the 1996 Japanese no rarity symbol, which is why you saw, like, in a golden auction for a Charizard PSA 10 this year, no rarity symbol sell for over $1 million. I think it was like 1.5 million in the sale this year. And if you look at the pop count for that card, there's only 10 in the PSA 10. I think there's a couple hundred in the English first edition from 1999. So 10 versus a couple hundred. A lot of people, they corrected the no rarity error, meaning they added it back pretty quickly thereafter, after October 20th of 1996. So the potential population of these cards in general, in any grade, that were not just lost to time, but were just like not kept in good condition, there's not that many of them. And so, like, my most prized possession for Pokemon cards is a no rarity symbol Pikachu PSA 10. The pop is 88. I think the equivalent for English is a first edition 1999 Pikachu Red Cheeks variant, because the Red Cheeks variant is the one you want, not the Yellow Cheeks variant, which is less valuable. Okay. The Red Cheeks has a pop of 250 or something, 280 maybe in the English. The pop for the Japanese no Rarity PSA 10, the counterpart is 88. But the real alpha, I haven't talked about it yet because people want to kill me for saying this, is that on October 15th of 1996, there were actually 2 TCG cards that were released before the no rarity symbol cards, only 2. And it was a Pikachu card and it was a Jigglypuff card, and that's it. And they were found in a Cora Cora magazine. It was a November 1996 edition, but was actually released on October 15th of 1996, and it contained those 2 cards within it. And those cards, somebody is starting to buy them out on eBay but the thing is, you have to be really careful if you're going to look into those cards. You have to be really careful about which version, because there are multiple versions. And so the language, and I'll post about this later this week, because I had a friend who almost bought the wrong version and it would have been silly. It's the Pikachu glossy Ivy, wrong illustrator. Okay, that's what you have to look for in the slab. It's 1996 Japanese Pikachu glossy Ivy, wrong illustrator. Okay, then the other card is a Jigglypuff glossy, and sometimes in the slab it'll say 1996 Cora Cora magazine. That's good too, but make sure that it has the wrong illustrator for Pikachu. Not to be confused with a Pikachu non-glossy version, okay, or a Jigglypuff non-glossy version. So technically, those 2 cards that were released in that magazine on October 15th of 2020 are the first ever Pokemon TCG cards. And I think there's a pop of 1 for that Pikachu, which is the more valuable of the Jigglypuff and Pikachu. I think there's a population of 1 in the PSA 10. No, I don't have it. But the arbitrage right now is that while people are buying up the Pikachu, you may want to look into the Jigglypuff glossy and get that before people realize what's on the table.
You're insane. You're insane. You're insane. Now, there's 2 things that popped up in the chat here that I just wanted to get to, if I can still just a few more minutes of your time, and then I'll wrap up. And again, thank you so much for doing this. So
this is a blast. Yeah, go ahead.
BL8 says, I'd love to hear how he is allocating funds when it comes to modern versus vintage when deploying capital. I struggle finding much appeal for newer cards when there are so many amazing vintage items.
Yeah, 95% vintage, and there are still opportunities. Like the 2 cards I mentioned, you could get, at least, as of a couple of days ago, you could get a Jigglypuff PSA 6 glossy 1996 card for 2,000, and now I'm starting to see auctions in the 2,500 to 3,500 range. But the thesis is right. You got to have a thesis that actually makes sense. Like if I can't explain for vintage, right? For vintage, if I can't give you an elevator pitch in 20 seconds, a true elevator pitch as to why something that you should invest your time and money in, that's not an elevator pitch one, but it's not an effective one. So the elevator pitch here is they're the first 2 ever TCG cards, period. It took me 5 seconds to say that. That's what it is.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
That's what it is. So would I rather buy, and I'll give you another one. So people, like 151 Pokemon. I don't have any 151 Pokemon. No shade. I think it's a great set. Here's the thing. 151, the best thing that 151 is doing for vintage collectors like myself, is people love 151 because of the nostalgia, or it's younger people who didn't grow up like myself in 1996 and get the Game Boy games when they came out in the original TCG, in 1999, if you're American like I am. It recreates nostalgia that they otherwise wouldn't have. All that reinforces the true vintage cards. So I told someone, I said, you got the Charizard SAR, whatever it is. See how much, that you could sell for $2,000. And I said, dude, for $2,000, you could get a 2001, and you can actually still get this. So if there's like some little bit of other, like just alpha, you could get a 2001 English first edition Surfing Pikachu Black Star for $1,000. You can get two of those for the top chase card in 151. And that Surfing Pikachu is a top 10 most known and loved promo card for Pikachu. Pikachu has the best promo cards, obviously. So I'm of the mind, like, that's such an obvious move. It would take me a nanosecond to make it if I were him. So so my answer is 95% to actually probably more, to be honest with you.
And then fine.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. So if you got one more, go ahead.
Yeah, go. No, that's all I got. But no, I'm happy to stick around. What else you got?
Awesome. So one more question from BL8 again. I think he's enjoying this. So any appetite for collecting vintage toys or collectible items in addition to cards, i.e. Pokemon, Dragon Ball, etc.?
I have no edge there, so the answer is no. I mean, but I respect it. I know I have some good friends who are into Legos. I think there's a market there. I just don't have an edge there. The biggest kind of extension of collectibles that I've invested in the past year have been manga volumes for One Piece, Dragon Ball, and more recently Demon Slayer. Those are my 3 IP convictions. Got a couple other, but those are it. So like I got a first edition, first print. Sorry, they call it first print in Japan. One Piece manga volume. Someone else mentioned earlier, I think it was Pretzel, said that he's now a top 10 best-selling author in terms of sales of all time. Oda is. It's true. And think about it. That manga volume came out in 1997. Okay. The real alpha, and now it's just unobtainable, is the first weekly Shonen Jump issue, which is the magazine again. And that was from 1997 as well. No, 1996, sorry, for One Piece. And I think in a heritage auction last month, I think a BGS Beckett, which is actually Beckett, so people don't know, Beckett actually is the #1 authority for manga grading. So the books, the Tankobon, and also the magazine or comics, which are Zassi. They do both in-house. And I've got confirmation that they're going to continue to do both even after the PSA acquisition, or the parent company, PSA. So I branched out to that, but I stick with the basics. So, I've got a couple, first print, One Piece, some of them graded, some of them raw, a couple of the Dragon Ball, and then more recently, Demon Slayer. I didn't get into Demon Slayer until about 2 months ago. I loved it, connected with it immediately. I think it's just brilliant. And the movie last year made $800 million and is the biggest grossing anime film of all time. In a day and age where, big budget movies, they're lucky to cross $100 million or $200 million worldwide box office. And that's just phenomenal to make $800 million, 600 outside of Japan. And they've got 2 more movies coming up, and it's a dominant force. And so I think Demon Slayer, again, I just look at it and so I've been buying up the first print manga volumes, again, the Tankobon, which you can still get raw, like on eBay and Mercari and some other sites. But I've also been buying up, because I missed my boat on the One Piece, on the weekly Shonen Jump, which I could have gotten last year in a raw form. So the comic, I've been buying up the first comic book, so the Zacier magazine for Demon Slayer. And so my advice would be, even if it's not Demon Slayer that you believe in, but if there's another IP that's not One Piece or Dragon Ball, because their first comic issues are going to cost you $30,000 minimum for like a copy that looks like your dog, bit through it. So then the game becomes, well, what's next? Okay. So then Naruto is kind of, I'm not a huge fan of it. I think it's kind of losing popularity. I think Demon Slayer is going to jump it. But also, even Naruto's first weekly Shonen Jump is now selling in, $15,000 for a beat up copy. So then becomes, okay, well, what else is out there? And then just like sports athlete rookie cards, if you like to gamble or if you're more of like a long-term investor like I am, you can say, I believe in, whatever anime new franchise that came out in the last 5 years. I think it's going to stick around. I think it's a worthy investment. And then you can go look at not just the books, the mangas, but the actual first issues. And there is a real arms race on the weekly Shonen Jump for a lot of the top kind of up and coming ones. And so getting this, to be transparent, getting the weekly Shonen Jump first Demon Slayer chapter has been like my highest priority in collectibles in general over cards in the last 45 days. And I posted extensively about it. And I just bought another one the other day. So, but
getting into all of it. Yeah. This is, I had I don't know, I guess I would say somewhat expectations going into this because your tweets have been amazing. And again, guys, we have Rare Finds on the screen here if you're wanting to follow them on X. But I hope you were 1 in a million on terms of the history. But it's been awesome to chat with you. For people that may not be familiar with you, what exactly do you go through to give kind of a quick 60-second spiel? Just for on X, excuse me. Sorry, just on X for your account.
I mean, what do you mean? What? How much time does it take for me to put in a post or something?
Well, no, just if somebody's maybe wanting to go check out your account and give you a follow.
Oh, great. Sorry. All right.
You're fine.
Little self promotion. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm on X or Twitter at Rare Finds. Trying to, I truthfully try to find alpha and collectibles with the leaning towards cards. But I posted about things like first edition Apple products that are a no-brainer, long-term investment. I'll post about occasional kind of more arcane things like Super Nintendo games. But people have been really been getting a lot of positive attention, particularly about TCG and mangas in the last I'd say 6 months. Kind of blew up. So I'm trying to bring awareness to things and give an elevator pitch as to why it might be worthy of your time or consideration. And I'm trying to find things that either nobody's talking about or very few people are not talking about, and I want to amplify that, and really with an eye towards more vintage. And the reality is that there's always opportunities in the market. People who say, how can I afford to get these, Pokemon vintage cards? Well, I just gave you one, 2001 PSA 10 Surfing Pikachu. I don't even have that card. I love that card because it's Pikachu in a surfing boat, but surfing board. I don't have it, but it's very obvious to me, there's always opportunities, but just if you can't, if I can't convince myself in 20 seconds, how am I going to lay out a thesis to anyone else? And so you can follow my account. I do a weekly Spaces. I'm going to start doing it on Sunday afternoon. I'll post it 3 p.m. this Sunday. But hey, this is great, man. I really enjoyed it. We'll do this again. Hopefully in the future.
Yeah, of course. It was a pleasure hosting you, and honestly, I hope you have the best weekend ever. I know we're approaching the Friday as of tomorrow, but thank you, and we'll talk again very soon.
Excellent, dude. Happy to do it. This has been great. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, we'll chat soon. Enjoy your evening. All right, guys, listen, this has been, I'm not sharing the right thing. I need to go back to where I am over here on the side. Nope, that's where, hold on. Where do I find that? I got to stop sharing my screen. Hold on. There we go. Guys, this has been awesome. Again, you'll see on the top of the screen here, if you are wanting to check out the Sync Collect app, they are the sponsor and presenter of the show. If you're wanting to keep an eye on your One Piece, Riftbound, Pokemon, and other trading card collectibles, you're able to scan them if you're out at a card show or if on your own collection, see what the values are. And I think you guys will love the app, and I'm on there. They do have profiles, and we are approaching some updates. We're going to be able to connect just a little bit better. But that's it for today's stream. BL8, I appreciate you coming through, asking a couple of questions as well. Peckham, David as well, and anybody else that is here joining a little bit afterwards. It's not able to make it live. Donny was here with us a little bit earlier, but then he had to drop off a little bit earlier. But we are, I believe, going to change the times a little bit because he seems to have travel days on Thursdays, or at least a little bit more of a time crunch. So expect these streams to be maybe an hour later going down. But sincerely, thank you guys so much for tuning on in. And of course, we will see you soon Saturday. It looks like we are going to do a One Piece special stream, as I am trying to learn a little bit more about One Piece. I've reached out to some people that are very in tune with that. So we're going to look from the gameplay standpoint to the competitive side to a little bit of the collectibles and everything in between. So I will see you then. Otherwise, enjoy your own weekend yourselves, and I'll catch you soon. Peace, peace.